Welcome to today's microlearning on EITF 16C, determining the customer of operation services in a service concession arrangement. My name is Andrew Hicks. I'm a partner in the Department of Professional Practice, and I'm here with Dave Anderson, a senior manager in the department. We hope to keep this short and to the point. We will be discussing EITF 16C, in which the project was titled Determining the Customer of Operation Services in a Service Concession Arrangement. I will take you through some quick background on the topic, and then my co-presenter, Dave Anderson, will take you through a short example. I will then wrap us up by going through the effective dates and required disclosures. Let's get started with some background on service concession arrangements and the rationale for why the task force took on this project. Service concession arrangements are arrangements between the grantor, typically a government or public sector entity, and an operating entity. In these arrangements, the operating entity typically operates and maintains the grantor's infrastructure for a specified period of time. Examples would be municipal airports, toll roads, bridges, tunnels, prisons, or hospitals. The operating entity may be required to construct or provide periodic capital-intensive maintenance of the grantor's infrastructure. In exchange for these services, the entity will receive payments from the grantor or may be given the right to charge the public or third-party users for their use of the infrastructure. An example of this would be a toll charged to users of a bridge or tunnel. I want to remind everyone that the operating entity should not account for the infrastructure in a service concession arrangement within the scope of Topic 853 as a lease or property of plant and equipment, because in these situations, the operating entity does not control or have the right to control the infrastructure. Now that we've established some background on service concession arrangements, let's discuss why the task force took on this project. The board noted that diversity in practice has arisen when it comes to revenue and cost aspects of these service concession arrangements. The root of much of this diversity centers around whether the grantor or the third-party user is considered the operating entity's customer for operations and maintenance services related to the infrastructure. As companies adopt the new revenue standard, the board believes it's necessary to provide definitive guidance on determining who the operating entity's customer is, as it will drive the accounting under the new revenue standard. Dave, can you walk us through a short example of a typical service concession arrangement and discuss the EITF's conclusion on determining who is the customer?
Thanks, Andy, and will do. As Andy mentioned, the next two slides walk through an example of a common service concession arrangement and discuss the EITF's conclusion on determining who is the customer. In this example, a government entity or grantor owns the land and wants a road constructed. The government entity will maintain ownership of the land and road and enters into a service concession arrangement with Toll Road Inc., the operating entity. Toll Road Inc. will construct a toll road and operate it for a period of 20 years. The operating entity will receive no direct compensation paid from the government entity, and the cost to construct the road is $1 billion. The operating entity has the exclusive rights to toll fees for the 20-year contract term, which is projected at $3 billion. The road will require resurfacing every 8 years at an estimated cost of $50 million per project. Based upon this example, it's clear that the contract contains multiple deliverables under Topic 605 and likely multiple performance obligations under Topic 606. So who is the customer of the operation services? On March 16th of 2017, the EITF reached a final consensus that the customer in a service concession arrangement that's accounted for under Topic 853 is always the grantor. The third-party users, for example, the drivers using the toll road, are not the customer. So in accordance with EITF 16C, the government entity or grantor is the customer for the operations and maintenance services provided by Toll Inc. The consensus will reduce diversity in practice in identifying the customer in these arrangements. In addition, the identity of the customer affects revenue recognition and other aspects of the accounting for these arrangements. For example, treating the grantor as the customer affects the accounting for upfront payments by the operating entity to the grantor to operate the grantor's infrastructure and may affect the accounting for individual elements of the arrangement. For instance, revenue recognition for constructing and operating the infrastructure and performing required major maintenance. I'll now turn it back to Andy, who will walk us through the effective dates, transition, and disclosures.
Thank you, Dave. As Dave previously mentioned, the task force met on March 16th and reached final consensus that the customer is always the grantor. The board will be issuing the final ASU on this topic in the second quarter of 2017. The consensus included an effective date for the proposed ASU to be the same date as the entity adopts the new revenue standard, because the new revenue standard includes guidance on how to account for costs incurred related to the contract. The task force acknowledges there isn't clear guidance on the cost side in current GAAP, but didn't see a benefit of creating some new guidance that would be superseded upon adoption of the new revenue standard. If an operator early adopts the new revenue standard after the FASB issues an ASU on this consensus, it must also adopt this consensus at the same time it adopts the new revenue standard. For example, if an ASU on this consensus is issued in June 2017, and the operator that is a private company with a calendar year end adopts the new revenue standard on January 1st, 2018, it must also adopt the ASU on this consensus on that date. The ASU on this consensus will not permit an operator to apply practical expedience in the new revenue standard if it adopts the ASU before it adopts the new revenue standard. However, in those circumstances, an operator is permitted to apply the election in the new revenue standard related to applying the guidance to all contracts or to only contracts that are not completed at the date of initial application. Because of the interaction between the effective dates and the transition guidance in the two standards, the operator should consider the ASU on this consensus in its implementation plans related to the new revenue standard. From a disclosures perspective, the task force decided that no new disclosures would be required. The task force based this conclusion on the fact that because the grantor is always the customer in these arrangements, further disclosure would not provide any incremental information to the users. I will mention that entities should provide the disclosures required under ASC Topic 250.10, as this is a change in accounting principle. These disclosures should include the nature and reason for the change in accounting principle and a description of the prior period information that has been retrospectively adjusted. If the entity decided to apply the cumulative effect method of adoption, 2 additional transition disclosures are required. The amount by which each financial statement line item is affected in the current reporting period as compared with the guidance that is in effect for the change, and an explanation of the reasons for the significant changes previously discussed. I would like to thank Dave for co-presenting and the audience for choosing to learn more about the soon-to-come ASU. Have a great day.